Well, it's great to be back for another episode of the Disruptive Voices of the Pacific podcast, where we are disrupting the silence around abuse, around shame, around pornography, around just a lot of those issues that quite often we don't want to talk about in the Pacific. And today I'm joined by another courageous woman, and it's been my pleasure over the 1 year of doing this podcast now, the amazing women and men that I've been able to meet. And so today I'm joined by Lizzie Wong, who actually lives in Sydney. Welcome, Lizzie.
Bola, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really well. It's wonderful to have you with us today because today we're not going to talk so much about your story. You are a survivor of abuse, but we're going to talk about the aftermath, I guess the residue, as you would say, which is so important because quite often we'll tell the stories, but then what happens? You're a mum of 5 children. But tell us a little bit of your work that you're doing in Sydney.
Okay. So, Bulavinak, everybody. I'll just introduce myself as well. My name is Lizzie Wong, and I'm from Vanong Balavu, Vasu Vanovatu. So my work, I actually have a day job. I have two jobs. My paid employment is I'm an actual DV specialist worker in the family court. So I support, case manage women affected by domestic violence that are going through the court system. That's my day job. And my passion, which is what I'm the chair of the Fiji Diaspora Women's Alliance, and we are based in Liverpool, and we support women, Fijian women, and so I always say we support any woman that identifies as Fijian or young woman that's going through domestic violence, being or affected by domestic violence, either are wanting to leave the relationship or want to stay in the relationship but are needing resources and support. So that's where we come alongside. We're not saying that we have the answers, or we're not telling you to leave your partners. We're just saying, look, you're not alone, and there is support. So we work alongside existing services, and we also work alongside church leaders, religious leaders, and so actually what we see ourselves as, we're the bridge between the existing services and our community.
Yeah, and that's just so important, isn't it? Is this a big issue among the Fijian community that are living in Sydney?
Yes, it is an issue. It's still, so if we look at the data, because I get access to a lot of data of called women, so migrant women that come to support services. The Fijian women are actually quite low.
Yeah.
And the reason why is that because we still see it as a private matter. Also the shame that is, comes with it, like we don't air our dirty linen. It's between you and your husband. So a lot of the times they don't want to talk about it. And if the matter does come and the police is involved, the police does get called. Oftentimes the police is called because the neighbor calls the police. They've heard the incident, so they've called the police. Not the woman or not the household, but it's actually the neighbors.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, well, and quite often that can be a lifeline, can't it?
Yes.
And it's great that you're there to support. So thank you. You contacted me at the end of last year saying, I think I want to share a little bit of what you've been through.
Yes.
Which this is what this platform is. I love it when women are like, okay, now's the time. It's something you've thought long and hard, but something you've never talked publicly, even though you're working day in, day out with these women. So what made you want to contact me to speak up?
So I guess you and I, we've been having this conversation for over a year. I remember the first time you asked me about telling my story, and I was like, no, I was a bit thinking about it. So as I said, so for me, it's been over 20 years. My marriage ended over 20 years ago. And the reason why now I've decided to tell my story is because I've been very mindful of how I tell my story, because it's just not my story, it's also my children's story. And my children are now adults. and I'm very respectful and mindful of them
Mm,
because they've come along this journey with me, with me. And also I don't want them I don't want to re-traumatize them, or I don't want to be part of the pain anymore, you know.
mm, mm.
Also, I want to tell my story now because I can now tell it from a place of strength
Yeah.
and not a place of anger or bitterness or unforgiveness, which is all the things I guess we work through when we're going through the healing. And I'm not saying I'm 100% healed. Healing is, I think it's going to be a lifetime thing,
Mm,
but and I don't really believe in that quote. It says, um, time heals all wounds. No, but I believe but as time goes on, we learn to live with what has happened to us, and we learn to then reflect more and start working on, start realizing, okay, that happened, but it's not my fault. Now, what can I do about it?
yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. We're responsible for our healing,
Yes.
aren't we? So it's been over 20 years since you've left that marriage. How long were you married to
Yes.
man?
So just to background, so I got married quite young. I
Yeah.
was 19. Um, so we were together before it ended, probably 20 years as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
close to 20. So 18, 19 years we were married. And I was pregnant to my fifth child. I was 5 months pregnant.
Mhm.
When I decided that morning, this is it.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I packed our stuff, and the children and I had to relocate. So I'm blessed in the sense that I had my siblings. I'm the oldest of six. I
Mhm.
have four surviving sisters and a brother, and they were my support system. So we went and we stayed with my brother until I had my fifth child.
Okay.
And then when my little one was born, he was probably 6 months when we then moved out on our own. And in that time, it gave me time to save because I had to leave my job, my full-time job, the kids. So I had, at the time, there was three in high school, one in primary, and I was 5 months pregnant to the youngest, who now is 21 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge. So you were living in Australia at this time?
Yes,
Yeah.
I came to Australia when I was a child
Okay.
with my parents. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. So let's go back to when you first met your ex-husband, you were dating. You told me you saw some red flags.
Yes.
Quite often, but we probably weren't aware of red flags back then. And
No.
that's another reason why you want to speak up, because if we can help women see this beforehand, man,
Right.
it will save a lot of pain. So what were some of those things that you were noticing?
Okay. So the reason why I want to touch on this is because and this is not blaming the victim or minimizing the abuse. This
Mm,
is actually taking responsibility for our lives. And this comes from reflection and also from doing the work that I do. So and I really believe this is a conversation we need to start having with our daughters and with the
mm,
younger generation. I saw red flags, like, for example, you know, like even when we were dating, there was infidelity, and it was, oh, but we're just friends, or push, like, minimize, like that. Oh, you're just overthinking things, or you're just jealous, you're just insecure. And it was during that time I saw all of those things, and there's just little things that he would that they would say, like, criticizing the way you look, oh, if only you looked like that and didn't look like this, only if you were taller, or only if you acted this way. So there was those little things, and I knew in my gut, like, I had that feeling in my gut, like people say, your intuition, we as Christians, we call it prompting of the Holy Spirit. I knew this wasn't good for me. But
mm.
because I was young,
Yeah.
I was naive. He was my first boyfriend, I hadn't had much life experience. And I guess I just believed everything he said, and I suppressed what I was feeling and what was trying to, And I guess too, because I didn't come from a home where there was strong foundations, where
Mm,
I didn't come from a home where we talked about things like this, where I could go to mom and say, or to my parents and say, hey, I'm feeling some kind of way. Like, what does that mean? Or, you know, everything from and I can only speak from my experience. This, you know, but I grew up, I guess a lot of things I did as a young adult was in secret because I didn't have a safe space at home.
mm,
And I didn't have the type of relationship with my parents where I can go and say, you know, this is happening to me, or this is how I feel, or, you know, what does this mean? I didn't have that. And a lot of
mm.
people, I think, in my generation, we didn't have that. So things were done in secret. And now I look back, and when things are done in secret, that's when things happen that are not good.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And that's it's a huge problem, isn't it? Just this whole issue of taboo. We don't
yeah.
address these things. How do we as a Pacific culture, how do we change that? How do we break through that mentality to provide a family in an environment where young people do want to come to us and share? What do we do, Lizzie?
Okay. I really like what you're creating, a platform where people can come and speak openly about having these honest and transparent conversations. However,
Mm,
we can use this as a platform, or we can use it as a pillar of our lives. Like,
mm,
actually, don't just come and speak of it on a platform, but actually do it. Start from the grass
yeah,
with your own home, you know, in your own
yeah,
family. Start with that, with your own children, with your sisters, with your girlfriends, with your, you know, your world of influence. Like, start having these honest conversations, like I did with my daughter. The conversations my mom didn't have with me, I chose specifically
mm,
to have with my daughter, because I wanted her to know that. And I said this to all of my children when they were coming up to that age where I knew they'll experiment with this and that. And I would say to them, I would rather know than the whole
yeah,
community knows. Come and tell me. Yes, I might get upset, I may get disappointed, but I want to know. And
yeah,
I think that's where it's creating a safe space, and not just a safe, but make sure that it's confidential. You
mm,
know, like if someone comes to you and shares something with you that's so deep, and keep it to yourself.
mm,
Pray with that person. Be practical about what you say. Don't just be spiritual about everything, but be practical on how we have these conversations and how to also hold their hand through it.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so important. And we've been doing some episodes around how to help our young people
Yes.
navigate these issues. So then let's fast forward. You saw the red flags, ignored them, got married, and yeah, abuse started. Although what he was doing to you beforehand, that's abuse as well, getting into your head and all the gaslighting, um,
Yes.
manipulation and control. So then, yeah, finally you leave. You said you're pregnant with your fifth child. What was it that made you think, I can do this? Because so many women, again, just stay in the relationship, put up with it. So what was the final straw for you to get out?
Mm. Okay. I'll just touch on what you said, like, you know, how what he was doing before was abuse, but I didn't see it as abuse because it
Yeah,
wasn't physical.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
and so a lot of the times we just think that's not, why are you making a big deal? He's just making, you know, it's just words. But that is abuse. And it slowly seeps its way, and it goes from words to action.
Mm,
So for me, for
mm,
that moment, if I remember that day very clearly, that morning. It's like if I can go back there in a second, you know. Um, I guess it got to I had, to be honest, had left a couple of times prior to that,
yeah,
but I always went back. It took me, I think it was like 5 times. I'd leave and then I'd go back, or I would just leave for the weekend and come back, you know, because no one gets married to have your marriage broken. No one gets married to end it. And I grew up in a home where my parents did divorce, you know, and I didn't want that for my children. I wanted it. I wanted to to stay together for the sake of the kids. But I lived very two contradictory lives. So in my career, I was excelling. I
Mm.
was, doing really, really well. But then when I came home, I was, and I think it was that contradiction as well. And I had come away from church. We were part of a church, but I wasn't very active because I didn't feel safe at church as well. I didn't have anyone I can go to because I would make fun of. And this was women around me, leaders, pastors' wives, like would say, oh, like if people were organizing outings, they'll go, oh, not her, because she'll go home and she'll get it. And it came from a person who knew my personal life, even though I hadn't spoken it out loud.
Yeah.
So I didn't know where to go. So in that day, I decided it's either now or never, because I was pregnant and I felt like I'm not bringing another child into this kind of thing. And I literally left with a small little bag, and that was it. And I knew, like, as even I remember as leaving the house and going, and I knew I'm going to go straight to my brother's office. And it was the first time I spoke it out loud to my family as well.
Wow.
I I don't even know how myself and my daughter at the time, she was only, I think she was 7 or 8 at the time. I don't know how we even got there. To be honest, it was all a blur until I actually was sitting in front of my brother in his office. And as soon as he saw me, he knew something was wrong. But I think it was accumulation of things, and mainly it had to do with the child loss, because I realized I can't bring somebody else into this anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's you said you went back you left 5 times, which again is quite normal, and can be frustrating for people who are trying to work with people in domestic abuse relationships, because we're like, oh, why are they going back? But yeah, why did you go back?
Okay. I guess once again, I'm only speaking from my experience.
Yeah, of
I
course.
guess for me it was the shame, because when I decided to get married, my family wasn't happy about it. They didn't
Yeah,
want me to get married to this person. Second, it was a shame of bringing shame to my family as well, my parents and my family. And then also, like, the stability, we both were doing well in our careers, and, we had the nice home, the this and that. And it was the stability. Like, it's so easy to say, why don't you just leave?
yeah,
But then are you going to take her in with her 4 children? Are you
exactly.
going to feed them, clothe them until they get on the feet, however long that takes? No, it's so easy for us to say that, but that's all the things that we contemplate as a woman in that position. Like, how am I going to take care of my kids? I can't work and look out, make sure they're also catered to at the same time. And if I do, I one is going to lose out. It's going to be my children. And second, the fear of, also I was fearful. I was afraid that if I do go to my family, he may turn up there and harm. But I mean, that's just
Yeah,
all hearsay. He didn't, but that was because he had threatened that. I was
yeah.
afraid, oh, that might happen, but it never happened. But
Mm,
you start believing that they would do those things, so you
mm,
don't leave. So you'd rather just think, okay. And also another thing is, I guess it's the gaslighting, when you leave. I'm sorry that happened. I won't do it again. I'm going to change, because it's not always bad. That's the thing.
yeah.
Not every day is a bad day. There's moments where it's good. And those are the moments that we hold on to.
Mm,
Those are the moments that we cherish. Those are the moments that we base that relationship on, because we hold on to that,
yeah,
and we hope for a better day, for the change to come.
yeah.
So we stay.
Yeah. Yep, no, you've explained that so well. So when you did leave finally and went to your brother's office, and you're telling your family for the first time, which takes a lot of humility, knowing that they never wanted you to be with him, how did your family respond?
Um, to be honest, I'm one of the blessed ones. I have
Yeah,
a great family. my brother, of course, being my brother, and also he's my protector. Even though he's younger than me, ever since we were children, he always felt like he had to protect me.
Mm,
He was angry, of course,
mm,
but he also knew at that time his anger wouldn't help the situation. So he just said, "Look, let's go home," and that was it. And and really, my family didn't really harp on it. Do you know what I mean? Which really helped me as well.
yeah,
They just went with me through it, like cry with me when I had my days, left me alone when I needed to just lock myself in the room and try and process everything, made sure that they were around. So I'm really blessed in that sense that my family weren't the ones to say, "We told you so." This is
yeah.
no, that came from outside, but it didn't come from my own family yet.
It's never a helpful line, is it? We told you so. It doesn't
No, it
send
doesn't.
anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, if only every family responded like that, instead of
Yes.
it's always sad when I hear the families who send the woman back, you married him, you've got to stick with him. Da, da, da. So, yeah, I pray that more and more of our families can accept us in the good and the bad and the ugly as
Yes.
well. So, for the last 20 years, what have you had to walk through
Yes.
in your healing journey with your 5 children?
Yes. It's been so the last 20 years has been I can sit back now and look back and think, well, but so we always think once you leave the relationship, that's the end of it. It actually not, it's the beginning of something else. So when we left, then I had to start to deal with the residue of it. Personally, for me, I had to deal with the trauma of it. So I had nightmares. I
Mm,
would have nightmares to the point where they were so real that I wouldn't sleep for 3 days because I'd be too scared to shut my eyes because of the nightmares. And this is one of the side effects of trauma, of being abused, that you do have nightmares. I had to deal with my triggers,
mm,
For example, I'll give you one. Um, I I going to Aldi's, you know how they go really, really fast. That
yeah.
would trigger me. The noise of the register. So for a long while, I think it was a couple of years that when I would go do my shopping, one of my sisters would have to come with me. I would fill up my trolley. She would then have to take things through the register. I would go wait outside because that noise would trigger me. I would get into an anxiety attack. I was diagnosed with clinic depression,
Mm,
anxiety, and I did have panic attacks.
mm,
And the first time I had a panic, I didn't even know what I thought I was having a heart attack. But then when I got to the hospital, then I was taken to the hospital by ambulance. Then I realized it was a panic attack. And it took me, I think, a good 10 years just to start learning how to how to breathe through things, how to recognize my triggers. Sometimes it's a loud noise, all of a
mm,
sudden noise like that,
mm,
raised voices, even just simple things like going to a mall full of people.
mm,
I would start to sweat and feel anxious, and I would just do my shopping really quick and leave because it was uncertain for me. Like, I wasn't comfortable being around a lot of people. So that was for me a lot of things that I had to deal with. The nightmares didn't stop until 5 years ago, where I actually got prayed for.
wow.
The nightmares.
Mm,
Then with my children, it started manifesting itself in different ways, in anger.
mm,
They would have anger spurts. They would, start reacting in school, like, getting into fights and, experimenting with things. And so people would see that as a rebellious child, as a naughty child. But I realized that was the manifestation of what they had gone through and what they had witnessed. And I thank God, because when I left, I got planted into a church. I took my kids into a local church where we were, and I found in that place, it wasn't a Fijian church, it was a multicultural church. People didn't care about my past. They didn't ask me, "Where's your husband? Why are you just you?" They didn't care. but they personified the love of Jesus through their lives to me and my children. And it was, I joined a prayer group, which we got together every Monday as women, and we would pray for each other and for our children. And I really believe with all of my heart was that season. It helped me and helped my kids. My children are still working through their healing, just like I am.
Yeah.
But we're in a better place than we were 20 years ago. Yeah.
That's beautiful. But yeah, it's real, isn't it? But is the pain of I guess what you've had to walk out of better than the pain than that you would have stayed in?
Yes, I 100%. Like, yes, it was hard. Like, we paint this fallacy that once you leave,
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah.
We also paint this fallacy that God promises roses and a good day every day. No, he never said that. He never promised. He said weapons would form, but they will not prosper.
Mm.
You know, we still live in the real world. So, yes, it was hard. And like I said, it took me 15 years, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm still going through the healing, but I'm much better now than I am before. But it's much better than living in it, because I really believe if I had stayed, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
Because when I left, it was starting to get to the point where I started to think I was crazy, you know, because I felt like, one, I didn't even believe in myself anymore. I didn't even know who I was anymore, because
Mm.
everything I did or everything I believed in or everything I felt was questioned, you
Yeah.
know. And so when I finally left, I didn't even know who I was. And I was nearly 40.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even know who Chris was or who Lizzie was. I didn't even know. I
Yeah.
had to learn to find out who I was again.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that season, because it's given me the courage to speak in this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us, our time's almost up, but can you just tell us some of the boundaries that you had to put in place? Obviously, your ex-husband's still the father of your children. Um, there's probably a bit of a sense of entitlement. Were some of the practical boundaries? Like, how do you walk out of that and just begin to protect yourself a bit?
I actually, I actually removed myself physically far away from my old life. I called it my old life. So I didn't engage with him as much, like only with when it had to do with my children.
Yeah.
And that's why I lived with my brother, because I knew then there's protection there. You know, he can't just come in to the house because my brother was there. That's my brother's house, and he was respectful of that.
Mm.
So I put things in place where I removed myself totally from that, all of that life, you know, the people I associated with, friends, church,
Mm.
everything. And
Okay.
I really just removed myself and my children, like even physically. And
Mm.
I also um, just didn't entertain any more of that relationship as well. Even with his family, I had to really cut myself off to the point where, and I don't blame them, it's not nothing to do with them, but I
Mm.
had to get to a place where I could be without too much noises in my head, you know, too much people talking to me, because that's what's going to happen when you leave. A lot of people are going to come in and, you should do this, you should go there. Why you get over it? It's been this, that. They'll talk all sorts of
Mm.
things. But I had to learn to just put myself in a place where I had people that were speaking truth and out of love to me, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I put those boundaries that where we only spoke because of the children. We only did things because of the kids. We didn't, you know, I didn't go to his family stuff. He didn't come to my family stuff. Whenever we were together, it was because of the children we had together. That was it.
Yeah.
It didn't cross any boundaries. And we separated our lives completely. Like, and you know, just to touch on that, Letitia, now he's actually one of my closest friends,
Yeah.
because we've both now come through that, you know, where my children have a good relationship with him. They have a good relationship with me. We do things together as a family.
Yeah.
You know, we've co-parented well to the point where my children don't feel like oh, I can't go to dad's because mom might get upset. No,
Yeah,
we actually do things together as a family now.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's taken, yeah, many years.
Yes, it's taken many years, and it's taken I guess for both of us not to not carry on about it's about us, because we had to focus on the children. Yeah.
No, beautiful. Well, as we finish, what would you like to say to any women out there who are possibly currently in an abusive relationship or walking out of it? What would be your final words of encouragement to them?
One is that I guess you're not alone, you know. You might feel alone, but you're not alone. And really be careful of who you surround yourself with. Surround yourself with good people and sound doctrine as well, you know. And just reach out, like you're not going crazy too. I know you're going to think you're going crazy. You're not going crazy. You're not crazy. And there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect in the way God created you. And he has promised you that you will, he has promised you a life of abundance and of peace and of joy. And he says that you are his daughter and that your name is written on the palms of his hand.
Mm.
And trust in his promises, no matter what you see, hear or feel, because his word is yes and amen. And get yourself connected to the right people, the right church, and and speak out. Don't be scared.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lizzie, for your time today and your courage to speak up and share.
Thank you.